Nau mai, haere mai, ki tēnei karakia o hatu Matthew. Welcome to St. Matthew in the City, where we continue to meet via the web. Today is Maundy Thursday, the beginning of the great 3 days of Jesus' Passion. Our worship from now on is focused on the connected recollection of the Easter events. Usually the service would take place in the evening, but things are not usual at the moment. So this middle of the day, we will recall Jesus' last meal with his friends. Jesus did 2 things which continue to have huge significance for Christians. Wrapped in a towel, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. By this act, Jesus radically crossed the boundary of privilege and power that divided teacher from student, and he invited us to follow his lead. Jesus then took bread and wine, a symbol of his self-offering and a means of sharing his self-giving love. We cannot take bread and break it, pour wine and share it at this time, this year. It adds poignancy to the situation in which we find ourselves. However, we can be together, remembering, and we can enact God's breaking into our world and our lives for the world. Grace to you and peace from God our Creator, the love at our beginning and without end, in our midst and with us.
God is with us, here we find new life.
Hear the teaching of Christ. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Spirit of God, search our hearts.
A reading from the Gospel of John, reading from chapter 13, verses 1 to 17, and verses 31 to 35. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share in me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash, except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should follow and do as I have done to you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Kia ora koutou. How strange to be recording this reflection for you at home on my phone, with none of the atmosphere of St. Matthew's, the smell of the beeswax candles, the light through the stained glass windows, or the sound of my voice in the nave. There's a real grief that we're all likely to be experiencing at not being able to journey through Easter in each other's presence and in the church. The sense of loss is particularly acute tonight because the Maundy Thursday service is such a sensory experience. The foot washing engages our bodily beings in so many ways, with the sensation of water being poured over our feet and hands touching them, the sound of the water in the bowls, towels rubbing, our knees creaking as we kneel, eyes contacting, and the stripping of the altar. But in a way, our circumstances drive us into exactly the right frame for Maundy Thursday. Lent is over, and now we go into the darkness and get right back to the essentials. A bit like living in lockdown. We can only get to Easter by going through this part of the story. So even without the sensory experiences of the Maundy Thursday ritual, we can reflect on what the gospel says to us living here in lockdown. The first thing to notice is that Jesus washes the feet of all his disciples, even Peter, who denies they are friends within hours, even Judas, who betrays him. Jesus doesn't just wash the feet of the good, the well-behaved, the truthful, and the hard-working. He washes all the disciples' feet. In washing their feet, Jesus assumes the position of a servant to the disciples, and when Peter questions him, Jesus says, "Unless I wash you, you have no share in me. Servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sends them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." So we are asked, all of us, not just those of us who are good, to allow ourselves to be served. To be truly served, we must allow ourselves to connect in the frankness of all our beauty and all our ugliness. We must make ourselves vulnerable, available on the deepest level, fully present. Anything less, and our surrender to being served is incomplete. The invitation is to ask ourselves, which part of us needs to be washed and healed and loved? Or better perhaps, which part of us resists being washed and healed and loved? That's the starting point. Jesus calls us to bring the most unlovable parts of ourselves and be washed. We don't need to have our best selves on show, because in the end, we're all the same, just as our feet are all essentially the same. We're all much the same in our selfishness, our impatience, our anger. It takes courage, real guts to be fully present in our vulnerability, to show our need, and to surrender to being served. Everything in our culture drives in the opposite direction, towards always looking good, having all the answers, and living our best lives. But Jesus says, if we can allow ourselves to be served, if we can receive care and concern, and if we are open to being touched by others, we will be blessed. What I read into this promise is that we will be blessed and we will be connected by moving out of our fear and allowing our feet to be washed. We will be connected and we will be able to connect with others and wash their feet. By being connected, we become community, but we must be all in, fully part of our communities. We can't cherry pick and we can't turn our backs on the difficult. We can't just dip our toes in the water. We must be fully immersed. And if we can do this with our whole hearts and with the whole world in our hearts, we can go out in the world to offer the same to others, because we know from this gospel reading that it's all right to be human, and that it is by receiving tenderness and mercy that we are fully human. Amen.
E tō mātou matua I te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tae mai tō rangatiratanga, kia mea tia tau e pai ai, ki runga ki te whenua, kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. Homai kia mātou ainei, he tāra ma mātou mo tēnei rā. Murua o mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei, I o te honga e hara ana kia mātou. Awa hoki mātou e kawea kia whakawaia. Engāri whakorangi a mātou I te kino. No hoki te rangatiratanga, te kaha me te kororia. Ake, ake, ake. Āmene.